seeing officers leaving. Retention is an issue for us. So, as we move forward, I have this group standing behind me. You see city government, you see my command staff, the sheriff, the DA, and we're all looking for solutions. Internally at Portland Police Department, we've taken the step of limiting outside details. So when we look at how our officers work, we fill shifts within the police department, and then we are contracted to do outside enforcement, or excuse me, outside details. That may be traffic, that mass gathering events. Numbers are staggering. So we are seeing, on average, 33 patrol doubles a week and 69 outside details. And when you look at a staff that is 25 officers down, you see how impactful that is. Throughout this year, whoops, I don't have that full number, sorry. Yeah, throughout this year, we have filled 463 patrol doubles and 965 outside details. That doesn't include concerts and mass gathering events like the Sea Dogs games. So as we move forward, we're going to limit those. We are going to look at these outside details and evaluate whether or not they are a risk to public safety or a risk to traffic safety. If we deem that they are, we'll continue to fill them. We will still have officers at all mass gathering events, and we are going to staff additional shifts in patrol. We've been working at minimum staffing, so way less officers on the street. We are going to go to full staffing on the street. We're going to add a supervisor, and we're going to add, during certain shifts and times, additional two-man cars. Those two-man cars will be working the areas where we have seen the most violence. And the goal is to show a presence, to let the public understand we are out there. We understand the importance, and we understand that they are concerned about what they're seeing in their community. I think that about covers the steps we're taking. I'm sure there are questions. I'm happy to answer any you may have.
Yes, I'm wondering if you're talking about the staffing levels and the issues that you have facing your department, and you've been working on less staffing and you're going to full staffing. How can you go to full staffing if you don't have the officers?
When I say full staffing, so we have, because we've been filling so many of the outside details, we were not able to fill all of our patrol shifts. So we go to, maybe a patrol shift is supposed to have 12 guys on it, 12 officers on it. Instead of having 12, we would be working with 10. So by reducing the number of outside details, we're going to fill that extra overtime and get our shifts to full staffing. It'll be overtime officers, but the full complement of officers will be on the street, if that makes sense.
Something that you mentioned before earlier, we were talking about the jail and the issues that they've had with their staffing issues as well. Are you drawing a conclusion? Are you saying that some of these people should have been in jail?
Yeah, I mean, as we look at public safety and as we see the behavior escalating throughout our community, I think there are instances, I know there are instances where we believe if we had arrested somebody and taken them to jail, removed them from that situation, that the crimes would not have escalated. So yes.
You've also put out a lot of information recently about just the specific shootings that just happened over the last few days. I know in one case there was one person who was arrested for a shooting at a housing complex on the city's northeast side. Have you determined if that same person was involved with a shooting earlier in the night?
I will tell you that we've made, of the 7 incidents where we had shooting victims, we've made 4 arrests in those cases. And I'm not going to comment on any of the active investigations right now. We're working with other agencies, and it is our policy not to comment on active investigations.
Sticking with that, since these are active investigations, and as you just said, you're not able to answer all questions about them, but for the situations that have happened just recently in terms of gun violence,
Yep.
and you have been able to make arrests, have you been able to locate those firearms, and have you determined if those were purchased legally or illegally?
Again, I'm not going to comment on active investigations, to include that.
Can you talk about what you've asked the state to do? What does that look like? How does that help come? Is it more towards corrections at the jail? Is it more towards backfilling or overtime funding for your staff? What have you asked them? What are they able to do?
I have asked them to help with staffing. So, last year, we were in this same situation. The sheriff was, I think, 66 corrections officers down, and both the city manager and I reached out to the state and said, we're struggling with recruiting in law enforcement. We know that corrections is also struggling. We don't see this problem getting better. And here we are a year later. The sheriff is now 87 corrections officers down. So when you look at those numbers and the way it's trending, we're not able to keep up with recruiting. And so I've asked them to step in any way that they can help. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't gotten a solid answer of what that will look like yet. Yep. That started. Correct. And so this week I have kind of renewed that request and said, we're in a tough spot here. And if our jails, the core function of law enforcement is public safety, right? And if we are unable to arrest people and take them to jail and hold them accountable, then that is a problem for our community. I'm not somebody who thinks that we can arrest our way out of the opioid epidemic or arrest our way out of our behavioral health issues. But there is a point in time that people need to be arrested and they need to be taken to jail. And when we don't have the ability to do that, it affects public safety in our communities.
Why do you think there's such a shortage of personnel for the jail?
Well, I think that's multifaceted, right? I mean, so we are coming out of the pandemic. We're seeing employment shortages everywhere, really in all jobs. And public safety is an incredibly challenging profession. And we have seen a shift. Public perception really took a dive in 2020, and officers have not felt supported. We've seen an increase in targeted violence against law enforcement officers around the country. So I think all of those things factor together, and it's not a 9-to-5 job. When we hire somebody, we are very clear that you're going to be working nights and weekends, probably for the first several years of your career. And a lot of folks are not willing to do that.
I'm looking at the heat map that you provided about the violent crime and where it's centering around the
Sure.
city. And I can see right now, a lot of it is in the downtown area, especially right around the Deer Mountain Park. Is that a concern to the police department, given that a lot of people aren't living there?
Yeah, it's a huge concern. What you're really looking at there is our Bayside neighborhood, which has been a priority for us for years, but we are challenged by the number of unhoused that we have and the availability of treatment beds. We have talked about it endlessly, the fact that so many of the people that are living in Bayside and then are unhoused have substance use disorder issues and they have behavioral health issues. And when there aren't adequate treatment facilities, and they choose to live on the street, and a lot of them do choose to live on the street, that's an incredible challenge for us. And we hear from our community all the time that they want to see us taking enforcement action around those quality of life crimes. You're drinking in public, your criminal trespass, indecent exposure when somebody's going to the bathroom in somebody else's yard. But we're at a place now where we can't arrest for that. They're given a summons and they stay in that community. And those behaviors escalate. So it's a challenge, and we know it's a challenge for our community, and we're hearing it from the residents in Bayside and in Parkside and throughout the city.
You mentioned that before you were looking at the staffing issues and seeing where you might be able to reallocate resources, not being able to do things like the Sea-Dogs game, if that's what happens. So when will that begin?
That is beginning first of next week. So not to get too technical, but we take job requests about 3 days before those jobs actually happen. So we've had to contact all of our vendors. We didn't cancel any jobs that we had already filled. We just sent them all a letter saying, moving forward, this is how it's going to go. And I'll point out the Sea-Dogs is something that we will always fill because it's something we consider a mass gathering event. So we prioritize those.
You mentioned mental health issues a second ago. One of the nice press releases you put out on Sunday about the incident with the gentleman with the gun in the street, and the release indicated that police had encountered him several times in the week leading up to it with mental health issues. Can you draw an A to B to C connection between your staffing issues and why something might not have been done to stop this gentleman before he had a gun?
No, and I'm not going to comment on ongoing investigations, but there's certainly not our staffing issues didn't impact that. I would say probably availability of treatment may have impacted those encounters. Retention?
Retention and attrition, yeah. So is it retirements? Is it people leaving laterally to go to Falmouth, Dartmouth, fill in the blank, kind of quieter suburban communities? And on the inflow side, are there fewer in-state local candidates coming out of secondary, post-secondary school? Or are these laterals coming from other parts of the department, or other parts of the country? In other words, people looking for their Falmouth, their Dartmouth from Las Vegas, from Cincinnati, from wherever?
I would say it's across the board, quite honestly. So we have seen retirements where people are leaving earlier than they probably once would have. We have seen a significant amount of resignations. When I started 22 years ago, really the goal in law enforcement, you wanted to work for Portland PD or you wanted to work for the state police because they had the most availability to specialize, patrol areas. We are seeing people leave for smaller communities because it has become so challenging in urban areas, in Portland in particular. So yes, and that's something we had not seen before, but we are losing people to other agencies. We're also seeing people that just choose to completely get out of law enforcement. Somebody who is a 10-year veteran and invested that just decides, I am done, and they walk away. So that's been challenging. Recruitment. So we are in the midst of a recruitment push right now. I will tell you that pre-pandemic, we averaged about 300 applicants per, hiring cycle. So we have a hiring cycle as we build up for an academy. And in our last hiring cycle, we had 89 applicants. So, dropped by over 2/3. So that is challenging. We are seeing laterals from out of state come up here. And, it varies on how successful they are and how long they stay. The beauty of a lateral is it takes significantly less time to get them on the road when you're not looking at an academy. If they can pass certification tests and we can get them through field training. And we have been very successful with our lateral program. We have several currently working that have been here for a few years.
What's the financial incentive right now? Is there, I know there have been bonus offers before, is there one now to sign up if you become?
We do, yeah. We still have a sign-on bonus. It's paid incrementally, so it's not something you get up front. It's broken down, and I don't want to screw this up, but it's when you get through your academy, your field training program. Yeah. Go ahead.
Excuse me, the department has a dedicated behavioral health unit, right?
Yes.
And when you talk about the officers that have kind of come and gone, what's the inflow, outflow in that unit specifically, or community policing officers that might be helping some of the people that you're coming in contact with?
The behavioral health unit was steady for a long time. We just had turnover, I guess, in 2021. We've brought on new staff, so that's been a change. We have, for the size of our department, a very robust behavioral health unit. So we have one who is employed by the Portland Police Department. We have a substance use disorder liaison employed by the PD, and then we partner with TOA, the Opportunity Alliance, for a third person. So we have 3 dedicated, and we did last year receive funding through the federal government to pilot an alternative response program. So we are finalizing contracts on that, and we'll be able to put an additional 4 alternative response liaisons on the road.
It's an additional 4 or up to a total of 4?
Additional 4.
Okay. Do
Yeah.
you feel like that will help some of the issues that you're seeing, particularly in the kind of the hotspots of the Gearing Oaks and East Bayside neighborhoods?
I think it's great for the community, and I think that anytime we can de-escalate in the community and stabilize somebody, it's fantastic, and it will free up officers from those calls. Where I struggle is that there still are not the treatment beds available, so that follow-on care just isn't available. We are struggling to get people into inpatient beds, and until there is more housing and treatment facilities, that will remain a challenge.
And I know this is probably a tough question to answer, but when you talk about the number of treatment beds you might need, is there any way to put a number on something like that? Are we talking like dozens? Are we talking hundreds?
I wouldn't even dare, quite honestly. I would be pulling a number out of the air. It just, yeah.
The only reason I'm bringing it up, I know that Preble Street is very close to opening its new dedicated facility that they're hoping to house people with specific
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a great addition, and those specialized services are certainly needed, but I don't think it gets it at the whole issue.
You mentioned how the changes are being made so you can have more of a full complement of officers on each shift. Can you kind of describe exactly what that allows you guys to do? Is that more foot patrols? Is that just a matter of having simply more officers out within the city? Can you talk about some of the actual tangible changes that it allows you to do?
Sure, yeah. So it gives us a presence. And we've handled so far this year about 47,000 calls for service. So when you talk about running at minimum staffing, officers are not able to get out and go on that foot patrol. They're not able to do those routine contacts where they're just talking to citizens because they're running call to call to call and then writing reports. So by going to our full staffing, we're going to free up officer time to do more traffic enforcement, to make more citizen contacts. There will be, during certain hours, 2 officer cars that are assigned to areas where we have seen increased violence, so Bayside and some other neighborhoods. And I think it's important for us to have a presence there. It's important for people to see officers out of the car walking around and engaging the community.
That example there too, of 2 officers in a car in an area like that, that's something that's not regularly happening right now.
Correct, correct. Those are overtime shifts that we are adding.
How soon until the jail reopens? That's really a question for Sheriff Joyce, but what's the next move on that? It sounds like that's a stumbling block for feeling like your officers have more tools.
Yeah, I let the sheriff answer if he can, but I don't think the sheriff can put a time on it.
I'm taking it day by day. It's not gonna be forever. I mean, I'm just resting the staff because of the fact that, you know, I can't afford to lose any more staff. And there's gotta be a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel, or I will lose them. And my fear is if we lose too many more, then we really have to look at shutting down the jail completely, and I don't wanna get to that point. So that's why we're trying to do this as a relief valve. So it's a day by day. I don't see it happening forever, but I don't have a set date, and it won't happen tomorrow.
Sheriff, can you just clarify what types of people you are able to take in versus not able to take in right now?
Yep, so we're taking all felonies, all warrants, any crime, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony that's against a person, assault on a police officer, and judgment and commitments. So really, it's kind of the urinating in public, obstructing a public way, some of your traffic misdemeanors and stuff like that, we're not taking.
They're being considered being issued a summons, chief?
Yes. Any other questions? All right, I think David is going to provide,
We have another supplementary.
yes, another release and copies of the charts if you would like. Do you have one more?
I was just gonna ask one last thing. I know that one focus for you right now has been the availability of treatment beds. In addition to asking the state for more help with corrections officers, have you guys reached out to the state for help on that front for money?
That's an ongoing conversation. I think, you know, behavioral health and substance use disorder is at the front of everybody's mind. So I will say, I think that's an ongoing conversation. The state has started the options program, which is really trying to get things rolling. But for our part, my primary concern right now is around corrections and public safety and how we get that moving forward.
Can you help us just understand a little bit of context as it relates to 2022 when you look at that violent crime so far through the year? I know we've had so many changes because of the pandemic and what's been available for people in terms of services and so on and so forth. Can you just help us put in perspective, how does 2022 compare to either 2020 and 2021 or even pre-pandemic in your mind?
Yeah, we're being challenged. So as I threw out the stats in the beginning, but we're year to date, we're 31% up in our stabbings, and we're double the shootings we saw last year. And this is, I forget who covered it, maybe all of your stations, but in a couple of the latest shootings, rounds wound up in bedrooms where children were sleeping. And we look at that, and it's horrifying, right? You walk into a room after the shooting, we routinely canvass the neighborhood, and there's a bullet hole in a wall where a kid was sleeping, and it's terrifying for all of us. And that's happened twice in Portland. So we're focused.
I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, so hopefully, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, is this as bad as another time that you've seen in your time in Portland PD?
It is not. We went through our awards ceremony, and Assistant Chief Martin, who has been here much longer than I have, even commented that it is the most violent time he has seen in his 34 years in law enforcement. And I will plug our officers. The amount of first aid and trauma care that they are providing in the field is incredible. You know, I watch body cam videos, and we're gonna roll some stuff out on social media next week, but we just gave them trauma kits and put them through all this training for trauma care. And they're putting chest seals on people, tourniquets, things that law enforcement officers have never had to do here in Portland before, and they're doing it pretty routinely.
Given the increase in violence, are you concerned for your officer safety or the public safety in these particularly high crime areas?
I am concerned every single day for our officers' safety. And yeah, I'm concerned for our community when we look at rounds going through a child's bedroom. Anytime behavior is escalating like this, there is the concern for our community. Sure.
I know you mentioned before that you're doing this in part because of the statistics lately and the recent incidents, but what kind of public feedback have you been getting? Have you been getting a lot of feedback from the neighborhoods asking about this or voicing concerns? What's the movement?
You know, it ebbs and flows. I mean, we routinely get a lot of concerns around the unhoused population, behavioral health, and substance use disorder. But I would say we have not seen a drastic increase in concerns around public safety. This last week, and just the volume of calls and the volume of violence, really, I think I will say hit home for all of us and gave us a great deal of concern. And we just looked at it and decided we need to take some steps to ensure the safety of our community.
Without going into the details of an individual investigation that's still open, looking at the totality of what we've seen in the last year, can you draw any conclusions about what's underpinning this? Is this drugs? Is this the dramatic availability of firearms? Is it, general tough times for people who don't have any other option to resort to these things? What can you say about what's underneath this trend, if you can? I know that's a big question.
It's a big question, and I think we all think about it all the time. I think you're seeing when you go to your grocery store that people are just much more short-tempered. I think it's a challenge for everybody right now. And we talk about gun violence. We've got 17 stabbings. That is frightening. So I have a hard time drawing correlations between weapons, but the behavior we're seeing is really challenging.